Welcome back to another video. If you're new, my name is Leah and I am all about spending less and creating more. And today I am going to be doing a review on what we made for our meals during week 1 of our grocery budget low spend challenge. You can also go check out week 2 inventory and the grocery haul going into that, which I posted on Tuesday, and that will be down in the description box for you. Based on these ingredients, you may be able to tell already that we are making tacos. I am using some chicken that was already cooked, grilled up, and in my freezer, which is such an easy thing to keep on hand. And then I also had leftover tortilla chips from a restaurant. We're going to use up some regular tortillas and just enjoy a good Taco Tuesday. I like to use lime juice, pickled jalapeno juice, salt, and of course all of your good toppings for pico. And then I'm going to use some of these corn tortillas as well for myself. Next, I wanted to make some pork chops that I had in the freezer. I defrosted those overnight. And then I'm going to use some leftover rice pilaf for Dakota because he prefers that over mashed potatoes. And Weston and I love mashed potatoes. So we're going to do that, season the pork chops with this Creole seasoning. And I like to sear those really good on both sides in my cast iron skillet and then stick those into the air fryer on broil. It doesn't have to be the air fryer, but I'm just putting it into an oven at 450 for about 15 minutes. Now this all depends on how thick your pork chops are and how long you actually seared them for on the skillet, but you don't want to overcook them, just until they're no longer pink inside. For lunches, we like to utilize our leftovers, so I used the mashed potatoes from pork chop dinner along with barbecue meatballs for Weston, and Malin had barbecue meatballs as well. These were leftover from Christmas dinner, and I put those in the freezer in a Ziploc bag and just defrosted them. Of course, gave them plenty of fruit and snacks to go along with their lunch. And then for breakfast, they had some freezer breakfast sandwiches I had made a while back.
It's on my finger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of Malin's favorite meals is peanut butter sandwiches. So I took that Texas toast bread, rolled it thin, and then after I made the sandwich, I cut it out with cookie cutters, which is her all-time favorite thing to take to school. I sent some of my birthday macarons with the kids for their school lunch as a little surprise to them. Weston took the last of the leftover meatballs and mashed potatoes, and then I pulled out some deli meat and sweet potato fries. The deli meat, I wanted to make sure it was thawed out in time for some future lunches, and I used those fries to go with our dinner. I made some burgers that night, and I put these into the air fryer. Apparently, I had it set to bake or broil for the longest time and they just were not getting crispy. So eventually Dakota came in, told me that I did not actually have it on air fry. So he helped me out and eventually they got nice and crispy. So the air fry setting really does make a difference. For the burgers, I used this 2-pound package that I bought on clearance of really good lean ground beef. I took half of it and portioned them into 1/4 pound patties, seasoned them really good with the garlic, salt, and pepper, and I think I cooked them to about a medium well. They were delicious. And the other portion of meat, I went ahead and cooked up before it went bad as well. Just ground it up and seasoned it with salt and pepper to use for some spaghetti and eventually some lasagna as well. So that was nice to get that taken care of out of the way while the burgers were getting done. And I also made some caramelized sweet onions to go as a burger topping. I only did half an onion and I saved the rest of it in this container I will have it linked down in the description box for you because I love keeping my leftover onions in this. It keeps your leftovers fresher for longer, and it keeps the smell from getting into your fridge and the fridge smell getting onto your onion. My favorite way to saute onions, especially if I'm doing it for burgers or brats, is to add some brown cola. Once they've started cooking, it just gives them such a sweet flavor. Definitely recommend that. Now for the burger buns, I'm using the ones I bought on clearance. It says that the date on there is already bad, and I have some icing color on my fingernails. Life of a cookie maker, but these are still really good and soft. So even if the date says that it's gone bad, that's not necessarily the case. I'm also using some American cheese, mustard, ketchup, mayo. Of course, burgers are easy to customize and personalize for whatever your family prefers. I also ended up giving Malin some barbecue chips from the back of our pantry instead of those spicy Chipotle seasoned fries. Now, Weston and Dakota loved them, and I am so glad that I picked them up when I found them for $1 at our discount grocery store. You can also check out that grocery haul down in the description box because it was super fun. Friday, we made some little corn dog mini muffins. The kids were home with me all day because school was canceled. We had a tornado watch, so we just stayed home, and this was a really fun recipe. Malin enjoyed getting her hands into it. Weston is learning how to cook more and more, so this is definitely a recipe that your kids would enjoy, and I think they would have fun helping you make. So I just did a simple cornbread recipe. I'll have that down in the description box for you. I like it because it is sweeter, and that's just the type of cornbread that we enjoy. And it has a really good texture to it. It's a little more cake-like. It's not super grainy. So that's because I use cornmeal and flour. Of course, you can use whatever recipe you want, or even just a box of pre-made mix. We ended up with some leftover batter that was just enough to have a small loaf of cornbread to go with our dinner later that night. And we baked these little muffins at 400 degrees for about 12 minutes or until they were fully baked. And then I just used a little spoon to help release them from the pan. For dinner, to go along with our leftover cornbread muffin mix, I ended up making some spaghetti, and one of my favorite mom hacks or wife hacks is to use ground up mushrooms in my sauce. Now this was straight out of the freezer. I defrosted them for about 30 seconds until they were loose enough to get from the container, and I chopped them up super fine in this mixer. You could probably use a blender if you have to, or just chop them up super small with your knife. And no one is going to know that there's mushrooms in the sauce. I mean, it tastes really good. You may be able to taste the difference. My family doesn't mind the taste, but the texture, they have no clue. I've been doing this for years, and sometimes I have them in the sauce, sometimes I don't, and nobody in the family ever knows. And Dakota knows that I do this. I've asked him if he can tell, and he never does. He never knows. So I definitely recommend that. I used onions, the mushrooms, a can of tomato sauce, really large one. I added some extra water to it. Now to season my sauce, I never really measure. I just measure with my heart. But I like to add Italian seasoning. I also add plenty of salt, pepper, lots of garlic, and I also add some sugar just to help cut back on the acidity. This time I also decided to add some Italian style diced tomatoes into here as well. And I had an issue. I dropped the whole can in the sauce, so that's why the can looked that way. But I let this simmer for about 30 minutes, let it get nice and bubbly and all the flavors incorporated. And then I added that cooked meat that I had done the day before. So simple. I love this homemade sauce. It's definitely a little time consuming, but it's worth it, especially if you make a double batch and you get some of it put into Ziploc bags and into your freezer. Now the cornbread took less time than I had anticipated, so it was a little overdone, but it still tasted really good. I just chopped off the edges a little bit, and everybody must have enjoyed it because it was completely gone and I only had the tiniest taste of it. Of course, I served the meat sauce over some cooked spaghetti noodles, and then we had the leftover vegetables that was in our fridge, just some Normandy mix, some cooked edamame, and that was dinner. So hopefully this video gave you some inspiration, and of course, until the next video, I will see you in those comments.